The need to conceptualize health and illness in a larger framework than the traditional one has led to the formulation of a new paradigm, still in its infancy, but already having substantial repercussions in the practice of medicine. One of those repercussions has been the development of a new field within medicine, known variously as behavioral medicine or mind-body medicine or integrative medicine, which is devoted to a deeper understanding of what we mean by health, and to explore how we can best promote health and prevent disease, and how we can best treat and heal the diseases and disabilities we do experience. This new development in medicine recognizes that our thought patterns and emotions may play a significant role in health and disease. It recognizes that what people believe about their bodies and their illnesses may be important for healing, and that how we live our lives, what we think, and what we do may all influence our health in important ways. The field of integrative and behavioral medicine offers new hope for people who ordinarily tend to fall through the cracks of the healthcare system and come away unhelped, frustrated, and bitter. By involving people in this expanded definition of medicine and healthcare in a participatory way, integrative medicine helps people to shift the balance of responsibility for their well-being away from an exclusive dependency on their doctors and closer to their own personal efforts, which they have more direct control over than they do over hospitals, medical procedures, and doctors. Although we are often unaware of our thoughts as thoughts, they have a profound effect on everything we do, and they can have a profound effect on our health as well, which can be for better or for worse. Our thought patterns dictate the way we perceive and explain reality, including our relationship to ourselves and to the world. We all have particular ways in which we think about and explain to ourselves why things happen to us. Our very thought patterns underlie our motives for doing things and for making choices. They influence the degree of confidence we have in our ability to make things happen. They are at the core of our beliefs about the world, how it works, and what our place in it is. Dr. Martin Seligman and his colleagues at the University of Pennsylvania, under the rubric of positive psychology, have been studying health differences between people who can be identified as being basically optimistic or basically pessimistic. Some people tend to be pessimistic in the way they explain to themselves the causes of a bad event. This pattern involves blaming themselves for the bad things that happen to them, thinking that the effects of whatever happened will last a long time, and that the bad event will affect many different aspects of their lives. Dr. Seligman refers to this attributional style, as it is technically called, as the "it's me, it's going to last forever, it's going to affect everything I do" pattern. Some people call this mode of thinking catastrophizing. An example of this style might be the reaction, "I always knew I was stupid and this proves it. I can never do anything right," when you experience a failure of some kind. An optimist experiencing the same event would see it quite differently. People who are optimists tend not to blame themselves for bad events, or if they do, they see them more as momentary events which will become resolved. People who have a highly pessimistic attributional style are at significantly higher risk for becoming depressed when they encounter a bad event than are people who have the optimistic way of thinking. Pessimists are also more likely to come down with physical symptoms and show hormonal and immune system changes characteristic of increased susceptibility to disease following a bad event than are optimists. In a study of cancer patients, these researchers showed that the worse the attributional style, the earlier the patient died of the disease. In another study, they showed that baseball players in the Hall of Fame who had a pessimistic attributional style when they were young and healthy, gleaned from direct quotes from newspaper articles, were more likely to die young than those who had an optimistic attributional style. Dr. Seligman's overall conclusion from these and other studies is that it is not the world per se that puts us at increased risk of illness, so much as how we see and think about what is happening to us. One thought pattern that appears to be extremely powerful for improving health status is what is called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a belief in your ability to exercise control over specific events in your life. It reflects confidence in your ability to actually do things, a belief in your ability to make things happen, even when you might have to face new, unpredictable, and stressful occurrences. Self-efficacy increases when you have experiences of succeeding at something you feel is important. For example, if you are practicing the body scan and as a result feel more in touch with your body and more relaxed, then that taste of success will lead you to feel more confident in your ability to relax when you want to. At the same time, such an experience will make it more likely that you will keep practicing the body scan. Dr. Suzanne Kabat of the City University of New York has studied business executives, lawyers, bus drivers, telephone company employees, and other groups of people who all lead high-stress lives. In every group, as you might imagine, she found some people who were much healthier than others experiencing the same amount of stress. She wondered whether the healthier people had some personality characteristic in common that might be protecting them from the negative effects of high stress. She found that a particular psychological characteristic differentiated those who got sick often from those who stayed healthy. She called this characteristic psychological hardiness. Sometimes it is also referred to as stress hardiness. As with the other psychological factors we have looked at, hardiness too involves a particular way of seeing oneself in the world. According to Dr. Kabat, stress-hardy individuals show high levels of three psychological characteristics: control, commitment, and challenge. People who are high in control have a strong belief that they can exert an influence on their surroundings, that they can make things happen. This sounds similar to self-efficacy. People who are high in commitment tend to feel fully engaged in what they are doing from day to day and are committed to giving these activities their best effort. People who are high in challenge see change as a natural part of life that affords at least some chance for further development. This view allows stress-hardy individuals to see new situations more as opportunities and less as threats than might other people who do not share this orientation toward life as an ongoing challenge. As we examine research relating thought patterns and emotional factors to health, it's important for us to keep firmly in mind that it is always dangerous and almost always wrong to assume that because a connection has been found between certain personality traits or behaviors and a disease, this means that being a certain way or thinking a certain way causes you to get a particular disease. It is more accurate to say that it may increase to some extent, that extent depending on the strength of the correlation and a lot of other factors, your risk of getting the disease. More evidence relating emotional factors to cancer came from researchers at King's College Hospital in London who conducted a study on women with breast cancer. Doctors Greer and Morris conducted in-depth psychological interviews with 160 women as they were admitted to the hospital for a lump in the breast before it was known whether or not it was cancerous. At the time of the interview, all the women were under the equal stress of not knowing whether they had cancer or not. The interviews with the women and with their husbands and other relatives were used as a means of measuring the degree to which the women concealed or expressed their feelings. The majority of women who were later found not to have breast cancer had what these researchers termed a normal pattern of emotional expression. However, the majority of women who were later found to have breast cancer had either a lifelong pattern of extreme suppression of their feelings, for the most part anger, or of exploding with emotion. Both extremes were associated with a higher risk of cancer. However, it was much more common for these women to suppress their feelings than to be exploders. In a 5-year follow-up of 50 of these women with breast cancer, all of whom had been treated surgically, these researchers found that those women who were judged to be facing their situation 3 months after surgery with what they called a fighting spirit, that is, a highly optimistic attitude and a belief in their own ability to survive, were much more likely to be alive than those who at 3 months had adopted either an attitude of stoic acceptance toward their disease or who were completely overwhelmed by it and felt helpless, hopeless, and defeated. Women who denied altogether that they had cancer and refused to discuss the subject, and who showed no emotional distress about their situation, were also much more likely to survive to 5 years. The results of this study suggest that emotions may play some role in cancer survival. But whether psychological factors played a causal or exacerbating role in a particular disease in a particular person will never be known with certainty. There is evidence that suppressing emotional expression may play a role in hypertension as well as cancer. In this area, the focus has been primarily on anger. People who habitually express anger when provoked by others have lower average blood pressures than people who habitually suppress such feelings. Perhaps the greatest scientific scrutiny of personality factors in relationship to chronic disease has focused on the question of whether or not there is a heart disease-prone personality. For some time, it was thought that there was conclusive evidence that there was indeed a particular behavior pattern associated with increased risk of coronary heart disease, known as type A behavior. But further research showed that in all likelihood it is not the entire type A pattern as originally described, but only one aspect of it that's related to heart disease. Type A's are described as driven by a sense of time urgency and competitiveness. They are characteristically impatient, hostile, and aggressive. Many studies confirmed the connection between type A behavior pattern and coronary heart disease and demonstrated that it was true for women as well as for men. But other studies, particularly those by Dr. Redford Williams of Duke University Medical School and his collaborators, looked at just the hostility component of the type A behavior pattern and found it to be a stronger predictor of heart disease all by itself than the full type A pattern. In other words, the evidence suggests that you are at less risk of disease as a type A if you are low in hostility, even if you feel a strong time urgency and are competitive. What is more, high hostility scores predicted not just myocardial infarction and death from heart disease, they also predicted increased risk of death from cancer and all other causes as well. Evidence supporting the importance of social connections for health has been bolstered by several major studies of very large populations in this country and abroad over the past 20 years, keeping in mind that this book was first published in 1990. All show a relationship between ties to others and health. People who have a very low degree of social interaction in their lives, as measured by marital status, contacts with extended family and friends, church membership, and other group involvements, are between 2 and 4 times as likely to die in the succeeding 10-year period as are people who have a very high level of social interaction, when all other factors such as age, prior illness, income, health habits such as smoking, alcohol consumption, physical activity, race, and the like are taken into account. One remarkable study of human-animal interaction came about after researchers at the University of Ohio noticed that rabbits on a high-fat, high-cholesterol diet designed to give them heart disease had much less severe heart disease if they were in lower cages in the room rather than in higher ones. This finding didn't make any sense at all. Why should the position of their cages make a difference in the degree of heart disease when the rabbits were all genetically identical, were on the same diet, and were being treated the same way? Then one researcher observed that they were not being treated exactly the same way. It turned out that one of the members of the team was taking out the rabbits in the lower cages from time to time, stroking them and talking to them. This led the researchers to perform a carefully controlled experiment, petting some rabbits and not others while keeping them all on the same high-fat, high-cholesterol diet. The results demonstrated conclusively that affectionate stroking of rabbits made them much more resistant to heart disease than their unpetted kin. The petted rabbits had 60% less severe disease than the unpetted ones. They repeated the whole experiment the second time to make sure it wasn't a fluke and got exactly the same result.